Well, come on in, you guys. I have a really fun tour for you today. This is kind of a last minute thing we decided to do because this space that I'm going to give you a walkabout through is just so magical and so whimsical. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It belongs to my good friends John Fluitt and Marquette Clay. Marquette was the owner of that darling bungalow, the tour we did with the Appletini green front door. That was his house, and they have a landscaping business here in Oklahoma City called Garden Design Associates, and this is their spot. It's not really open to the public, so this is kind of a private tour of this magical space. There's so many whimsical, fun things to see, and I thought it would be a kick to kind of just go through the space and point out some fun things. You guys are going to want to take some notes because there's all sorts of fun ideas here. We're getting ready to shoot a video on some new introductions from Southern Living, but before we begin, I thought I would just kind of show you about this wonderful spot. So number one, here is a really cool idea. Look at this massive, and this is kind of in the shade, you guys. This is just a massive boxwood inside of a massive pot, glazed pot that they keep out year round, and then it's on top of a massive boulder. Talk about a huge pot foot, not even pot feet, with just wonderful algae and lichens growing on it. So this is an example of something that is so simple and so effective, and it's just a way to kind of make an evergreen wall. And a lot of this stuff is here kind of in waiting, in kind of in transit, because it will go to some of their clients. A lot of these potted plants and things are just here. Again, it's not open to the public, but a lot of times people will come here to kind of select some pots or say this is the vibe they want to help them determine what their signature style is. This is a very shady spot, so lots of yews, lots of evergreens, lots of hollies pruned high. This space has been here for a very long time, so a lot of these things are extremely mature. Talk about a bird bath. Look at this. I'm going to show you lots of mosaic tile things. Is that not incredible? That cobalt blue. Can you imagine what it would look like paired with some cobalt blue glazed planters? It would be stupendous. And here's another example of mosaic work with all of these stones. A lot earthier, a lot more organic, but nevertheless kind of the same principle, artistic principle used here. It's very windy today, so my audio may come and go, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Okay, look over here. There are just things to look at everywhere. There is just a little water feature, a bubbling fountain with some koi in it. And this is in a very small area. This is probably what? 4 by 5, 4 by 6, would you say, you guys? And isn't this fun? And I have to say, in terms of water features, a lot of times you ask me why I don't have any water features in my garden. Partly because my garden is so small, but if I had one, it would definitely be something Zen-like, very understated, and for lack of a better word, just a sort of bubbling rather than a fountain type of thing. This is the kind of water feature that really appeals to me. And I love the way it's nestled back in these yews and these evergreens. I think that is just really, really fun. And then because in addition to being a landscaper's office, there's just so many wonderful curiosities here. I think John is something of an anthropologist, and he has all sorts of wonderful, just clediments and really fun things about, and I just love this. Look at the organic nature of that. You could plant sedums in there. You could use that on a mantelpiece, inside or outside. I just love it. So over here, we've got more of that mosaic tile. Here's another planter. And some of these things, it's kind of fun because you can tell that birds have just planted things inside some of these pots, and then they've just taken hold and started to grow without intention. Behind you, Stuart, is another, okay, just so you'll have the scale of this. Look at how big this pot is. Is that not incredible? And in Oklahoma and in the South in general, the bigger the pot, the better, because you can put really large specimens in it. It's like, as I said, a piece of furniture, large scale furniture. It's definitely a focal point with or without a plant in it. It's massive, and I think it's just brilliant. So that's fun. Okay, look over here. This is just across from that pot. Look at all of these things. This is just a wonderful montage of different kinds of garden ornament, depending on what your garden style is, that you could introduce into your landscape. A way of injecting some permanence and some artistry and lots of potential focal points into your garden. I love the way it's aged and developing a patina. I just love the look of that. So depending on whether or not you wanted something just organic like a spherical ball, or you wanted something more Michelangelo-esque, you could just pick something to speak to your garden personality. Okay, look here. Here is another massive saucer, and in this case, he's just got it filled with different kinds of stone orbs that you could scatter around in your garden or wherever. And I know you guys are going to ask me for the sources on this stuff, and frankly, I'm just not really sure. I think he gets them all over the place. He sources a lot of things in Dallas, I think, from all over the place. The guys get these things. And then come through here. Please note that we're being bad this morning and we had pastries. Fun for a shoot. Here's all the Southern Living plants. Now look at this, you guys. In here, I feel like I'm living in a Tolkien novel or something, because it's just very Hobbit-like. Look at this. I don't know if this is a piece of driftwood or what, but isn't that spectacular? Isn't that just wonderful? It's obviously been honed down by water. It looks maybe to me like it's some kind of cypress. It looks a little bit like those cypress knees that come up in the water, but I think it's just magnificent. And I just love it. I think Mother Nature is definitely the best artist. We have filmed here before. Look at this really, really fun fireplace, stone fireplace. Let's stoke this fire a little bit. These guys were very kind, and they built a fire for us this morning. It's a little bit chilly. I love how organic this looks amongst all of this greenery. It feels very sheltered, very cozy. I can definitely see some marshmallows and blankets in my future here sitting in front of this fire. And this is the place we're going to revisit when we do some container plantings and container composition with these Southern Living plants. Okay, a number of you mentioned to me, and here's a perfect example, how you can establish a plant like a small tree or a huge evergreen or something in your garden and not have to water it as much if you cut the bottom out of a container. And here is an example. This is a massive concrete pot, and they have done just that. So they've cut the bottom out. Obviously, once it gets in position, it's there to stay for a while, but that way I can imagine a beautiful Japanese maple in here, maybe a gorgeous dogwood, some kind of fabulous specimen tree that is planted in place and it stays there, but then it's got instant maturity because planting it in place gives it automatic height, and it could just be a spectacular specimen. Okay, this is just too fun. We always talk about not allowing ivy to grow up our trees, but in some cases, why not? And in this instance, they've allowed this ivy to grow to the top, but look at this. Isn't this just incredible? And just fabulous in texture and in feel. And it just, I almost feel like a face is going to appear and start talking to me. It is just really, really a wonderful living storyteller, I think. And look at this vine, these massive vines climbing up it. Now in this case, they probably knew the tree wasn't going to be long for this world, and it may have not been a prized tree. So in this instance, what they decided to really cherish and treasure was the ivy itself crawling up the trunk versus the living tree itself. And I really love that. I can already tell, Stuart, we're probably going to have to do this in a number of different segments because there is so much to see here. Look at this. This is just a huge stone planter. And this is one of those cases where I talk about just plopping color in, because look, this is just a hollowed out stone. Hey, Roger. Hey. Roger, say hello to Roger over here. Hey. Roger is my buddy. He's been in some of my Southern Living videos before. He is one of the designers, works here, a very good friend of mine, and he is the one who kindly set all of this up for us. Thank you, Roger. And we brought pastries as a thank you. Great. So have at it. But this is another example, you guys, of just how you take something in a plain pot and you just plop it in place. It looks spectacular. And then if they wanted to change out this composition, maybe put in some pots of blooming bulbs or something in the spring, they could easily do that. But I love the qualities of this. And it would be brilliant whether or not it was planted. Now, in a lot of different spots, I think it's very much a Roger thing. You'll see lots of containers and pots that are just filled with magical treasures, maybe large pieces of glass, orbs like this, lots of gravel. In fact, Roger, would you grab one of those pieces of glass over here? Because I think this is a very fun idea. And Roger's not mic'd up, but Roger, you will stay 6 feet apart. Mm-hmm. But you have used this.
Yeah, we've been using that quite a bit. It's slag glass. It's available in a bunch of different colors.
Isn't it just wonderful? So if you wanted a more contemporary artistic feel, he has pots just filled with this glass. And it reflects the light, it captures the light, it makes interesting rainbows and such in the surrounding landscape, and it's really, really a cool idea. Roger, would you point out over here, because this is also, I'm going to backtrack. I said we're going to have to do this in multiple segments because there's so much to see here. But look at this. This is a very southwestern, a very Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado. Okay, it's from Kansas, but it's a look of the Southwest. And it is just a huge orb of barbed wire. Now, you sourced these in Kansas, Roger? Uh-huh. And Roger has a couple of these. At some point, we're going to do a tour of Roger's garden, but he has several of these in his landscape. Really fun. I would love to have some of those in my Colorado garden one day. It would just be perfect. I love it because it speaks to our geography and our culture and our history here in Oklahoma and in this part of the country. It's just really, really fun. Okay, so we're going to just do a little bit more over here, and then Roger, you won't mind if we come back and shoot more of this magical world you've got here. Yeah. We'll come back. So let me come around this corner, you guys. I would say another signature plant of this landscape business, and you guys have asked me about it in my own. Lots and lots of Foxtail Fern in pots because of its texture and because just how brilliantly it works. And also cast iron plant because it's also great for shade. And look at that textural composition of that kind of just feathery foliage against this broad-leafed plant. They too are obsessed with mulching with rocks and gravel. And look here, here's just another boxwood, but with really large stones in this hypertufa concrete planter. So think outside the rocks in terms of what you might want to mulch your plants with to get a different effect. This could be, again, a really contemporary modern look. I love the angularity and the sleekness of these stones. A whole different vibe. This is a giant aging weeping blue Atlas cedar that cascades up and arches over, and a lower branch that also arches over on a lower plane. These do well in Oklahoma, and you see them planted pretty frequently. I think for us, it's kind of an alternative to blue spruces because it's more tough. It has a very Dr. Seuss-ish quality to it because of the different forms it takes. You can find it in a more classical, traditional, straightforward shape, Christmas tree shape, but you can also find it in these very kind of wind-blown, distorted, Japanesque kind of forms, and I love that. I had a prized one in my landscape and I lost it after it had been there for a very long time. They require excellent drainage, but it's a very valuable plant in Oklahoma. So I'm going to come over here, and then we might have to cut it off at this point because there's so much to see. But I'm thinking this is an olive tree in here. I bet this is a little Ollie olive tree in a beautiful urn, chaliced urn here. And I don't know if they've got this planted in a liner or directly in the pot, but it is really, really beautiful. You'll notice a lot of things are elevated up on plinths or columns here. They collect a lot of things from architectural remnant houses and architectural salvage stores, and then they use them as garden ornament and garden feature. Here's another one of those pots. I covet greatly. I covet this huge terracotta finial inside this tall kind of rectangular pot. I love the juxtaposition of this round line against the angular one. I think that's very, very appealing. And then they've got in here just ivy and lots of creeping wire vine or Muhlenbeckia. And you'll see it also as a ground cover at the base of this, where they have gotten it to naturalize. And then over here, speaking to kind of pots and things being in the same family, they've got a massive mosaic tile, in this case, terracotta and concrete pot with a wonderful metal tutor in here growing, I'm not sure what we've got growing here, some Nandina and other things. Now, Nandina is not normally a plant I would get leggy and really prune it high, and I've never noticed this before when I've been here, but look at this. This is just the commonest of plants. This is a heavenly bamboo Nandina domestica that they have allowed to just grow in a massive way. It's planted in a pot, and by pot I mean in a raised garden that is nothing but stone. and then they've just planted it in some soil, and over time it's grown, and its branches now have created a canopy for this corner, and kind of hiding some utility lines back there. So who knew? I'm always talking about the advantages of pruning back Nandina domestica, but look, in this case, they have artistically pruned it in that way I love, which exposes the architectural branching and all of the beautiful lines. And I love the way it looks when it blows in the wind. Again, evocative of kind of a Japanese vibe. Very, very zen and very, very beautiful. Well, I'm going to stop there because I could wax poetic on and on and on about everything here. I know you guys are going to want to see more of it. If you do, make sure to put it in the comments below. What you find most fascinating, what you'd like me to show more of. You can tell that my friend John has been very influential. He's a landscape architect. I am just a learn it yourself, trial and error kind of practitioner, but he has been so influential in my garden journey and my garden style. And I think it was from him that I got my passion and my love for just green on green and structure and shape and form. John and Marquette both have been very influential in that regard. Roger is a little bit more about color. He does lots of their window boxes and things like that. So I just wanted to share a little bit with you of this magical, magical world.